Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to Sophie Finch, who is the creative director of Finch Interiors. And her company prides itself on designing spaces that people talk about. And when you see her website and Instagram, you will know what I mean. I've actually seen a few of them in the flesh, and they're just so refreshing, amazing, lovely, brilliant spaces. I'd love you to come over to Instagram because lots of the conversation is around really celebrating how far Sophie and I and so many of us have come in our businesses. Sometimes when we're stuck in the daily grind of emails and getting stuff done and deadlines, we can actually forget, we've actually done lots of different things. So if you do want to celebrate your success, please come over and leave a comment and let me know what you've been doing. I would really love to hear it. Also as well, if you want to receive my Monday Moves magazine, which hits your inbox every single Monday, all about inspiration, interviews, tips, strategies, techniques, all kinds of stuff, go over to nickyraby.com/magazine. Here's the episode, enjoy, and I assure you it will probably make you want to wear glitters and sequins. Morning, Sophie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi Nikki, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I have been loving your site, and I was just saying to you, kind of going through your website, going, yes, want that, need a disco floor, yes. Will you share with us what you do and how you would sort of describe your job?
I'm creative director of Finch Interiors. And how would I describe my job? So we're an interior design practice that do bars, restaurants, hotels, cinemas, but we try to do colourful, bright, exciting, unusual designs. And that's it really, I guess.
Fantastic. And how did the creative journey start for you? Were you always that person going, I'm just going to do this to the living room, Mum and Dad?
I actually remember when I was tiny, my mum said, what colour should we do your bedroom? And I was like, I'm going to do it white. I'm going to do it white with white curtains. It's all going to be white. And in the 80s, 90s, that was quite controversial. And she just went, no, we're going to do flowers. And I was like, okay.
You're like, but actually I put together this scheme and I've got this whole aesthetic going on, and don't break the plan. And where did the training come in? Like, how did it start to become like a job?
So I did art A level, and then I did art foundation. And I actually intended to be a fashion designer. Or graphic design or something else. And then I did art foundation, which means you can do all sorts of design. Because to be honest, I didn't really know that interior design existed when I was 18.
Yes.
It wasn't really a thing. It's certainly because of Instagram and everything, it's a big thing now. But back then, I hadn't really heard of it apart from changing rooms.
Oh, and yes, the old chicken wire, or the mirrored kind of bits of silver thing, and their neighbours would all be like, "Oh yeah, it looks great."
Exactly. Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen was my I didn't have any idea what interior design was apart from him. So I was like, well, I'm not going to do that.
No, I'm not going to paint my fireplace purple. No way.
Exactly. And then my tutor just went, look, I think you should do interior architecture. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And there was 80 of us on the course, and I was the only one doing it. And I was like, I don't know if I should be doing it. No one else is doing it. There's clearly something wrong here. He was like, no, I really think you should. You're like spatially aware. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but you're okay.
But lovely.
I was like, let's do it. So then I went to Nottingham Trent and did 4 years as an interior architect. And you do sort of 2 years, 1 year placement, and then another year. And then that's sort of how it all started. So I started working for big practices like Finch and big design corporate agencies. And that's how I started the interior design. So I was sort of doing, I can't even remember now, so long ago.
There's so many years that are so foggy in my brain.
I know. I mean, it's so hard.
Could have been last week or 1998. Yes. Who knows?
Who knows? So I graduated in 2000, which is absolutely terrifying now when I think about it. And just sort of thought, well, I really want to be in London. So I worked in design practices and sort of gave it a go. But I started actually in branding and then developed into interiors. So I still really, I don't do residential or cushions and curtains, really. I'm not interior stylist and more of an architect. And then I just thought, actually, interior architect's a bit of a wanky name. Am I allowed to say that?
You can, absolutely. Kids, if you're listening, we don't repeat it.
Sorry. I just thought, what does it even mean? It's like, am I an architect or am I an interior designer? It's sort of in between. It's sort of a nonsense. So I said, actually, I'm going to be an interior designer and embrace it and go down the colourful route and do crazy interiors for bars and restaurants. And then that's how my career started. But I didn't start my practice till 10 years ago. And that started when I had kids. The usual story. Yeah.
And so what did that look like? Did you know that your current situation was not going to work with kids? Or did you suddenly get this, like, I'm going to do what now? I've carried a human. I'm going to do all these things that I never thought were possible.
Oh my God, it's probably a bit of both thinking about it. I think, so I was designing, I don't know if you remember Chez Girards and Cafe Unos and...
Yes, I do.
Those bad boys. Things like
Booth
that.
Seating.
Oh gosh, it was quite a thing. And sunglass huts, and I was like rolling out 30 of those a year. It was intense, long hours. And I just thought, I can't keep doing this and I want to see my son. I actually want to be with him. And then I was walking down the street when my son was 4 weeks old, and I bumped into an old client of mine. And he just said, what are you doing now? I said, well, I'm just surviving. I'm alive, so I'm happy.
And we've made it out the house, so that's great.
Exactly.
Isn't it funny in those early things, those early weeks of parenthood, you're like, I've made a sandwich today. And they're like, no, but what's your life vision? It's like making a sandwich. Like, we're all fed and watered. This is great.
Exactly. I'm alive. That's all that matters.
Yeah, quite.
Oh, and he's like, why don't you do the next? So he's the owner of Breakfast Club. I don't know if you know that there's a chain of restaurants in mainly based in London. And by that point, I'd only done one with him. And that was in Angel Passage in Islington. And he said, can you do the next Breakfast Club for me in Hoxton? And I was like, can you not see I've got a baby in a pram? Like, it's... And he was like, it'll be fine. I said, I don't know if it will be fine.
The optimism of a man.
Oh my God. And obviously he hadn't had kids. He had no idea.
Right, yeah.
I was like, look, let's try it. But he said, it'll be great. And I was like, I really wanted to work with them. I honestly adore these guys as people, let alone as their business. And then I thought, right, let's give it a go. So I took Harry to all the site meetings, and I worked around him when he was sleeping, because I was like, I'm not getting him childcare. I'm not putting my relationship with my son at risk. I'm just going to try and squeeze it in as best I can. And I don't know how it happened, but it kind of worked. And when I look back, I don't know how how it happened, it was like a blur, a mist, a fog. And I've got a picture of him, 6 months old, eating scrambled eggs with his hands in the restaurant.
With a hard hat on.
And then from then on, it was sort of word of mouth. So then another client said, "Oh, can you do your bar in Covent Garden?" I was like, "Oh, God, okay." And I just sort of, it just spiraled from there. And I just thought, actually, I won't go back to my old company. And to be honest, it wasn't conducive for both of us, I think, because I didn't want to go back to those working hours. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'll just have a go on my own and see how it goes. But it was, I know you talk about this a lot, but it was incredibly hard.
Yes.
Trying to juggle it with trying to nurture and look after my amazing son and not trying to ruin that relationship, and also husbands, and it was really hard trying to squeeze it all in. But now looking back, obviously I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, I feel like there's sometimes a bit of a glamour of like, I just woke up like this, or this just happened, or suddenly I just got this lucky break. And it's like, yeah, but the in-between bits of getting everybody out the door without becoming that, come on, move it. You don't want to be that PE teacher on a field somewhere in that kind of voice. But there's just the logistics and that piece of the pie that is for you, where, I think back to those sort of Saturday afternoons where I just used to wander around in, trying everything on in Oxford Street. And it's just like, you don't have that time for yourself anymore.
No. Yeah, that's it. You have to sacrifice a lot. I didn't earn enough money to pay for the childcare.
Right.
So it was 4 years on my own, just trying to make ends meet, and I refused to put him in childcare till he was 18 months. And then I remember the day where I just gave up and said, I'm going to have to do it. And I cried my eyes out the whole day.
Oh,
I rang my dad and went, "What have I done?" And he's like, "It's fine."
I know. Well, it's so hard, those moments, because as well, throwing in there sort of like, yes, I'm a badass businesswoman and I'm being strategic and I know what I want and this is my product. But also those emotional sides of things. Like sometimes it's just like, I am so tired trying to do all these things. And I remember doing a talk, I've said it on the podcast, I'm sure before, I did a talk when Oscar was about 3 or 4 weeks old at a university, and Matt, my partner, came with me and I fed the baba, and then Matt was with him, and the talk was about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something small like that. It's funny what you sign up to when you're pregnant. But everybody just said, gosh, isn't it amazing that you've got such a supportive partner? And I think I was a bit sassy and tired, but I was like, isn't it amazing I'm here?
Yeah.
Because you're just like, yeah, it's great that he can sit with the baby, but also it's full on, and this has been a big planning mission to kind of get out there. You mentioned in your email about trusting your gut. Talk to me about that and how that process has been for you as you've navigated into sort of now kind of leading a collective of people that you work with.
So I think I've always struggled with confidence and self-belief, I think, but I always have had this instinct with my gut, which I think is really important. So even when you're at your lowest and you're so panicked, always trust your gut.
Yeah.
So when I started, how do I display this? So basically, I've made lots of mistakes, as everyone does, huge mistakes. And the mistakes obviously mean that you're learning and you get better and better in business. And the most mistakes I've made is when I haven't trusted my gut. So always, and it's things like, oh my God, I need money, I'm panicking, we haven't got enough money to pay this or that, so I take on a job which I know is going to be difficult, or yes, I know the client is not my type of client and it's going to be incredibly hard work, and I take it on, and then it ends up that you end up losing money because you're doing too much and over and above just to try and compensate to make it work. And so I always think, interestingly this year as well, with the economy being a bit of a wobble, I feel like this year I made a mistake again this year. So I've been doing it for 10 years now. My son's 10. And I still make mistakes when I'm confronted by money problems.
Yes.
How am I going to pay the girls? And I've got to make sure this is all, da 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 da. And you then go, okay, well, I'm not going to trust my gut. I just need to get money in. And I made a couple of mistakes again this year. And I keep having to say it to myself, and I say to the girls, and they go, trust your gut. And we're trying to empower each other and go, oh my God. And it's so important, I think, because you think of the short term, which is, okay, well, at least he's going to pay me a deposit, which gets me over the line for the next few weeks. But actually, the long term thing is it's just a huge mistake.
But I think you're not alone in this at all. I think we've all sort of done that, where you're just figuring it out. And even when sometimes I've done things and I'm like, oh, I should have totally written that in the contract, or why didn't I state that up front? Or sometimes I've just been so flowery in my language of like, I don't mind, what do you think? And it's like, actually, no, I need to sort of say what it is that I need. And actually, when you're up, and I think it's almost taught me since having a toddler, if I'm not straight up with him, I am like, life is going to get crazy very quickly. Whereas if I tell him and go, and then we're going to get on the bus, and then we're going to go to Finsbury Park, and then this is going to happen, even though if my dad's ever around, he's like, why are you telling him so much? It's those kind of thinking about stuff, but you don't get that experience from reading a business book. You have to do it and have the ugly cry until it reveals itself of like, oh, I'm not doing that again.
It's so true. And learning from those mistakes as well is so important. I think we get so worried about making mistakes and everything going wrong, but actually they're the best things that ever happened to me. I mean, I did a disaster of a job. The project manager was so misogynistic. It was ridiculous. I mean, in my industry, it does happen a lot because it's male dominated, but I try to avoid it. I'm very lucky that I'm surrounded by amazing people that I don't have to see it very often, but occasionally you get a job where you just can't believe it. It's almost like, oh my God, what is happening here? But if I hadn't have done that job, I wouldn't have met this amazing guy who I'm now producing furniture with. So I always think, I'm quite an optimist. I always think even when something is so awful at the time, you think, why am I doing this? Actually, it gifts you in other ways, and you learn from it.
Yeah, you really do. I heard an interview, a woman being interviewed by a man the other day, and he was doing this awful, like, he had his hands behind his neck, almost like he was going to do a sit-up crunch or something, like that kind of like, so tell me about yourself. And she kind of would get 3 words out, and he's like, great, good. And I was like, oh, you have no soft skills. This is really awful that I'm experiencing and hearing all of this. But it made me think, as, I'm going through the process of growing my team and growing my brand, man, but like I was like, oh, I'm never going to treat people like that. I'm never going to approach that situation because it's really ugly when you see it.
It's so ugly, isn't it? It's so funny. It's just like, I also have another theory that if you're just nice and friendly, then people are nice and friendly to you. I just don't understand why we have to be so sort of hostile and go get aggressive and sort of I'm going to take over the world. It's actually, I sort of feel like things can be fun.
Yes.
And I say this to my clients, like especially even big corporates. I'm like, this can be fun. We can.
You don't have to be a complete a-hole here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can actually work together and do something amazing if we enjoy it. If we don't enjoy it, it will just become awful. Like you can't produce something amazing in design if you're just stifled by being worried about second guessing people, or that's where it becomes really tricky. You have to be, you just have to have fun with it, I think.
And just taking care of those egos. It's like, come on now, like we're all in this together. Let's just like roll up our sleeves and sort of crack on. It's absolutely. How has that sort of been in terms of putting yourself out there and really kind of finding your ideal client. How have you found that process? And do you have somebody really specific in mind that you're marketing to? What does that sort of pitching for work look like, I guess?
That's interesting. So we don't have any marketing or PR or anything. So everything comes from the website, Instagram, word of mouth. We've won awards, which also helps because that sort of then puts you out there for the big guys to sort of find you. So I don't actually go to anyone. I'm probably the worst businesswoman in the world. I don't pitch to anyone. They come to me. So I sort of feel like once they've come to me, I've got them slightly on the hook.
Yes.
Already. So then it sort of becomes a bit easier. And then I must admit, there's still the free pitch thing going on. So we do have to do work for free occasionally, which is also really difficult when you're setting up a business and having to do lots of free work. But eventually you get there. Try and aim for. It's interesting. So when I meet someone, I have a gut feel and I know whether we can work together or not. And what I'm looking for is a fun approach. They want to enjoy the process and they're looking forward to it, and that goes with big corporates like Debenhams and Nando's and everybody. And when I also look for forward thinking and I sort of just want to know that we're going to get on okay. Like, do they want to sort of really think outside the box? So most people come to me because they want to see something totally different and they want to change up their brand and they want to be shocked and see something totally different. So the way we go about it is we call it the big idea. So we come up with an idea that can come from anything, mainly movies, or I don't look in magazines and see what other people are doing, or, because then it's already done. It's already over. So I always get inspired by, it can be anything, to be honest, but mainly movies and TV shows and all sorts of things like that. And then we come up with an idea for them that is something to hold on to, so that when you design the rest of the space, you can always go back to that idea. So, for instance, for the King of Ladies Man, we did a secret bar, and the whole idea was Burt Reynolds lying naked on a fur rug because he was the King of Ladies Man. So we
Brilliant.
That image spiraled the whole concept, and it was a 90s bachelor pad. Sorry, not 90s, 70s bachelor pad. So it was all sort of shiny and glossy and brass and everything.
Amazing.
But it was quite, I remember presenting it to the client and actually being quite nervous. And he was like, no, it's great, let's do it. And I was like, oh my God, I've actually done it, oh my God. And that was the first moment where I went, okay, I do know what I'm doing and I'm just going to go for it. And that's what I say to the clients. I'm like, almost hold on to the table. I'm going to take you on a journey and I'm going to push you outside of your comfort zone so that if we come back down from there, that's fine, but we have to go as far as I can take you to be able to do something different. If you want something different and unique, you have to really get uncomfortable. I'm going to have to push you further.
Oh, I love that. Can you imagine if you got somebody who was a bit close, like, so does that mean that we all have to get naked? That no, it's just that there's just the image where nobody else is getting naked. That is it. Yeah, you're right. And having that trust in yourself to go, no, I can lead the way. I can set the boundaries. I can set the tone of this and how this sort of works. And yeah, so they kind of come on board with it. That's brilliant. Where do you get your creativity from in terms of, you spoke about like not actually just sitting at your desk and getting out and about. How do you sort of see things and then capture them to put them away for later, as it were, as and when you need them?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I think we just can't, as you know, like creators, as we all know, like you just see something all the time. It's just constant flow of information going in, which I think is why I'm so scatty. It's like, it's sort of organising all of that information that you see all the time and then saying, okay, I'll use that for that bar there. But I think how we get away from the desk is we go and see films together in the studio. We work from home. So I'm really flexible on time at work, and in that so this is another thing, sort of digress a little bit, is I find what's really important is working long hours does not produce a conducive creative atmosphere. It does not work. So I'm like, we work 9:30 to 5:30 and not past that. And in that day, we might go to the cinema, or we might just sit around and watch Game of Thrones, or we might...
I kind of want to work for you. I have no skill or expertise, but I'm available.
We might, and on a Tuesday, like we all work from home on a Friday, because I want to work from home on Friday, so the girls should be able to as well.
Yeah.
And if they want to go and see a partner in a different part of the world, that they can work from there, or work from their mums or whatever. I'm totally flexible about where you work, because I think that gets you away from sitting at your office in your desk 9 to 5 all the time. You can't be creative, because you might see something in a magazine, or you might look out the train window and go, oh my God, that's it, I've got it.
Yes.
And I think I get my most of my ideas when I'm away from work, like when you're just having a shower, or just sort of in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh my God, that's it. And then you can sit down and we brainstorm together. I mean, Pinterest is a big thing that's happened recently, but before Pinterest, we still have the same ideas. It's just easier to communicate them to clients now, because they can see something a bit more tangible. But I think it just, you have to be able to breathe, and holidays, and I'm a big advocate of the girls taking holidays and taking a break, because unless you let your brain rest, you can't let anything else in.
And which is the opposite in terms of this entrepreneur conversation that happened, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, of just keep going, keep grinding, put in the time, otherwise you don't want it. I've said it loads on the podcast, but this coach once said to me when I was talking to him about working with something when Oscar was about 6 months old, he was like, what time does Oscar get up? I was like, 5:30 or something. And he was like, you've got to get up at 4:30. And he was just so like shouting, and I was like, no, because if I got up at 4:30, I'd just sort of wander around. I wouldn't be able to string a sentence together, let alone write an email or any of that sort of stuff. And you're right, I think that sort of nurturing of your brain and your creativity, like taking care of it, is really important.
That's exactly it. Taking care, like self-care, we talk about this a lot now, don't we? But I just think it's incredibly important. You just can't produce the amazing work that you need to produce if you're just exhausted. If you can't squeeze another thing into your brain, it's just, you can't do it.
Totally. How do you combine logistics of like, right, these are the lead times, this is when this has to go in, to sort of pulling all the process, but also giving yourself that creative wiggle room to go, oh, actually, we need to change direction here, or we need a bit more of this? How do you sort of approach those potentially awkward conversations or shift things around and really, I'm trying not to say it like America's Next Top Model, but like really own that? Because I think there can be that temptation sometimes going, oh no, I've said it now, and like that's what I said that I would do, but knowing in your gut actually it needs to go in a different way.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that's actually just from experience now. At the beginning, I used to make loads of mistakes. I used to say, oh yeah, I'll get that to you tomorrow, and then realised that it would take me a week.
Yes.
Oh God, what have I done? And it was because, to be honest, I think I got away with it because I wasn't charging very much. It was just me on my own. So there was that flexibility, and I felt like I could say, oh God, I've really messed up, I'm sorry. And they'd be like, okay, fine. But now, now we're more established and we charge more money because we should.
And you're excellent, yes.
Yeah, because we're award winning, and so now we have to. But then that means I can now take on less work.
Yes.
So I know you talk about this too, and it's like it's a real game changer for me now. So my goal is to obviously do less and do it well. And the girls will tell you I'm quite organised. Like, we have a Monday meeting every Monday where we work out what we're going to do for the week. And I plan sort of weeks in advance. So I know when jobs are coming in, when they're not coming in, when they're going to be on site. So I can see where the crunches are going to be, when people are going on holiday. And then I can react to that. For me, it's always forward planning. So I know that in 6 weeks' time, I would like to go away for a week. So therefore I need to get someone in, or I need to shuffle things around. And I think clients react fine. So I've never had, touch wood, I've never had an issue, because I always communicate to them. That's another thing as well, is I always communicate that this is going to happen at this date. And so they know what to expect.
Oh, managing expectations is so key, that it's not rude or it's not bossy or any of those. That actually, I would much rather, if I'm on the opposite end of going, okay, this is what it's going to be. I mean, we've got this terrible plumber called Keith, and he's just literally like, it is like, where's Wally, where's Keith? And he's all like, baby, I'm like, stop calling me baby firstly, but like, baby, I'm definitely going to be with you tomorrow, which actually means, 8 weeks time.
And then you just don't know where you are, and it's just a disaster, isn't it? And I think it's just people, and it's like, for me as well, I just want to know when it's going to happen. And if it's not going to be for 3 weeks, that's fine, because I now know. But if you're going to say to me it's going to be tomorrow and then it takes 3 weeks, I'm not going to be happy. That's the thing. It's just like you say, managing expectations. And then that means I can manage the office, and we don't have to ever work late, because I can sort of manage it in the future, so that we're always on top of things.
Oh, happy days. And just having that sense of like, no, I mean, I've sort of done that with my content recently, because sometimes I would always have like ideas churning out, and I was like, right, I'm going to do this and this and this. And it's like, why am I making more work for myself? What I actually need to do is be much more strategic and schedule things and make a bit of a timetable. And it's, again, it's like freed up that creative space in order to actually kind of get stuff done. What helps you to kind of be the best sort of topped up version of yourself outside of work, and what really helps you, especially when you've got those monster days where you're like, oh, this all feels really hard and tricky?
Oh God, what makes me feel better? Oh Lord, that's a good question. I don't know. Cuddles from the kids really helps, and my husband, like, we're a big cuddling family.
Oh, it's those endorphins, isn't it? Yeah. I'm a bit like, no, just sit with me for a bit longer. Come on.
And then that sort of makes me think. And actually, I tell you what has helped over the years. Actually, is I used to keep it separate. So I used to keep work separate from the kids, especially because I was like, oh, I don't want them to sort of see the stress and panic I'm under, and I don't want them to have to even think about me being in work. I want them to think that I'm an amazing mum. So I used to try. Yes, exactly. Even though I didn't even have to turn on the oven, but it's exactly that. And I thought, but actually, I sort of started embracing it. I thought, I'm going to take them to work. I'm taking to meetings. So now they just love it. And it's like totally changed everything. So because now they feel part of it, and I don't feel guilty anymore. And they just like, oh, mummy, like this morning, my son was like, oh, mummy, you're going to be on a podcast. That means you're going to be famous. And I was like, oh, not really.
You are going to be famous. You are.
I was like, no. And he's just like, so proud and excited, and I thought that made a huge difference to how I approached work. So I was almost like trying to do it secretly and get it done as quickly as possible so that they couldn't see it. And now I sort of embrace it, and they come to work, and my daughter was so excited about coming to work with me in the summer holiday. She loved it, and I just thought that's really changed a lot, sort of creating it so it's not a scary thing. It's not trying to make work seem fun to them as well. I didn't want them to think, oh, oh, she's going to work, or
Well, that
not.
it's an option, isn't it, to actually love what you do, that it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be such a slave, that, I mean, God, you see it on Facebook the whole time. That's why I can't really go on it, Wednesday, get over the hump day, or Monday, or whatever. And I actually really like Mondays, because I love that kind of beginning of the week. I've got a banging lunch all sorted, I feel on top of things. It's actually Friday where I'm like, oh, I just need to lie in a heap. But I've always done that with Oscar, that whenever I go to work, I try and tell him what I'm doing and be excited about it. And invariably, he will have questions for me when I get home. So where did you go? I mean, mainly it's about what forms of transport I used, but that will all come. And I think it's a really lovely opportunity now, especially if we're living and breathing it, to lead these sort of creative lives, to go, do you know what, you could do this too? Because my parents were sort of very traditional in their jobs, but fortunately they were like, well, if that's what you want to do, then great. But my dad is still not quite sure that the internet exists. Do you know what I mean? He's still a bit cautious about, but what does it? Okay, and I'll just sort of be resigned to the fact now. Dad, if you're listening. I've got one final question for you, which is where would you like to be in 5 years' time in business and in life? It's a biggie for a Tuesday morning, but I'm just going to throw it out there and you can answer it as you wish.
Oh gosh, so because I've been doing it for 10 years, I'm quite lucky in that I sort of wanted to get to where I am now, interestingly, which is where I've got an amazing team that I love dearly and my family. And my husband also came on board 5 years ago, and he now runs the business, which is extraordinary, which is a huge help.
Oh, wow, how brilliant. Yes, before we go any, how does that work? Because also, as well, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, gosh, the 10 years ago version of yourself will be looking at you going, Sophie, you were doing all the things.
Yeah, because where I started was that I'll just freelance for a bit and see how I go. And I had never intended to have my own business ever. It was never a goal. So it was so the first 5 years were like, what the hell am I doing? And it was sort of a muddle and scary. And then when he came on board, it was almost a validation of, actually, okay, maybe this is a business, maybe this is going to work. And he was really integral in making me believe that, and sort of going, you've got to charge more, you're really great, and giving me confidence to say, actually, this is a business, and the whole family money's now coming from it, so I've got to believe in it. And then so my 5-year goal then was, I just wanted to get to the point where I didn't have to worry about money. Whereas we still do, but I'm sort of earning enough that it's okay. Do you know what I mean? I'm not earning lots. I would earn a lot more if I went back to my old job, but it's enough for me and our family to be fine and be happy. And I'm flexible enough that I can see the kids now, which is also what I wanted.
Yes.
And the byproduct was to do great work. And so by coincidence, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I've got it all. I've got the great work as well. How did that happen?
And something that you're completely in control of as well, that you're driving your own destiny, as it were, because you're going, ooh, this is my thing. This is what I do.
So true. And it's terrifying as well, because there's some months where you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
But at least when you have, like you say, that control, at least you can control that. Like, I will make myself redundant, if you know what I mean. I can foresee it. Whereas when you're in another business, it could happen tomorrow and you have no control over that.
And so you haven't maybe tapped into those skills of being solution focused. Like the amount of times where I know people, or you meet people at weddings and they're like, I mean, I literally don't know why they haven't sacked me yet because I don't do anything. And that they're always on WhatsApp at work and just, they're not taking it seriously. Whereas if you're running your own gig, you're looking for all of those things the whole time. Right, let's shift this, let's move this, and you're really innovating all the time, whether you kind of know it or not.
God, that is absolutely true. Yeah, and little things like working from home, and you're sort of like, oh well, I can do that now. I can make the rules. Why do I have to have this sort of stereotypical career? Yeah, it's great. And then, so my 5-year plan, I guess, I want to set up another business.
Ooh, so good.
It's because now it's sort of spiraled to a situation which I didn't even imagine it would, that now I'm thinking, okay, what's the next level? So I would love to, and I'm sort of in conversations with, designing furniture now. So furniture that's based in my bars, and actually I design it anyway, so why not put it out there for other people to be able to buy and enjoy? And I just think there's a big market for sort of fun, glittery coffee tables.
Yes.
You can't buy it. So
I do my best work when I'm in glitter, I feel.
Exactly. So, and I just think, why can't we have fun furniture at home? Why can't it be fun and colourful and bright and unusual and different? So that's my next goal, and I'm sort of just starting to do it, but it's hard to obviously squeeze it in with the main business, the earner. So I'm struggling now with how to switch the focus and how I can squeeze it in, but it's exciting. So that's sort of my 5-year goal. And then also another goal, which it feels unrealistic, but you never know, is I would love our studio in the summer holidays to just be working in Italy in summer, or like we have a whole summer off and we sort of work as and when we can and whenever we want to, and be much more fluid and flexible.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Gosh, like the people who work for you are like, this is the dream. This is so good. And also imagine like all those kind of colourful walls in Italy, or just, you're always working and topping up your inspiration as well.
Exactly. And I just think, and like we have this thing in the office where we always say, evolve or die. And it's so true. It's like, if we can't keep pushing the boundaries and keep pushing what we're trying to do, then you're just the same as everyone else. I'm always striving to think of what's next and how we can do things differently, because things have changed so much in the last 5 years. I mean, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be in, I think.
Yeah, I have to kind of catch myself sometimes because, I've got an almost 3-year-old, and sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I've got so much to do, and I can easily, this is all while I'm trying to put the kettle on and sort of get some caffeine in my body quickly. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, but stop. I have to kind of switch my mindset, because I'm like, if you're going to stay in that headspace for a long time, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss these opportunities and make yourself unavailable. So stop it. I have to be like a pushy pageant mum with myself, going, stop it, and put a smile on your face and get on with it.
God, you're so right, but it's so hard, isn't it? I talk about this all the time, like, but we hardly ever stop to celebrate or ever stop to catch a breath, and you just sort of, what's next? It's always what's next. And you're right, you have to stop and go, oh my goodness, this is actually the first time on this podcast that I'm actually like, oh, maybe it is okay.
Well, I'm so glad, because I think, and this sort of pops up a lot where people go, oh, I'm actually doing it. What I wanted, yes, I'm doing. And again, you're right. It's always like, oh, I haven't replied to that email, or, oh, I feel behind on this, or if there's a random accountancy query that pops up that you're not expecting. And sometimes just actually hooking in with what, and this is probably a good exercise if you're listening, of just write down your achievements, write down the stuff that's really been going well over the last 6 months, a year, or whatever. And I know the temptation will be to sort of say, yeah, but I didn't do this, but just think about what you actually have done, because it will be more than you think.
So I totally agree. It's so true. And I've started doing, the last 3-4 years, I've sort of sent myself and I write in notes what I want to achieve for the year, and then I forget about it. And then I look at it in December and I am amazed that I've always done the whole list. And I'm like, oh. And it's even things like eat healthy, or I want to do a cinema, and I always reflect back and think, if I hadn't have written that down, would I feel so like I've achieved it? Because I would have forgotten about it. So it's actually, it's a nice feeling to think, oh, actually I did do it.
And just showing up for yourself, like that sense of like, no, I actually really want it and I'm serious enough and I'm actually going to write it down. Because so many people are sort of random, like, I just want to feel better, or I just want more money. Whereas actually, if I now have started to write down what I want to earn in the month, and then I write down all the things that I want to buy. And sometimes it's like, you know, and I make it like exciting, like that Jo Malone perfume that I've been trying on. And, you know, I'll sometimes, even as I'm like running or something, think up of a character like, yeah, because when I have that perfume, like I'll be like this sort of person who wears like a peacock kimono or something, you know, something silly. But I get really excited and in tune with those goals rather than going, get 4 more clients, because it just doesn't light you up, and it just feels like such a uphill struggle.
Oh, so right. I mean, we didn't go on holiday for 8 years. So it was like, once we finally booked that holiday to Mallorca as a family, I mean, it was, oh my God, we finally done. I can't believe it. We're going on a plane. It's like, it was extraordinary, but it was worth the sacrifice now, 100% of like just not spending money on things like that. But now it's just so important. I think you're right to put goals, personal goals, then you're right, then for clients.
Yeah, and just suddenly things as you grow, they then become non-negotiable. As in, like, when I you know, I started working in a members club. That's sort of where I wanted to do my face-to-face stuff, because I was like, I'm not excited about a Cafe Nero where you're like, oh, somebody's left half an egg sandwich down the back of that. You know, it's not the most inspiring place. No offense, Cafe Nero, if you're working, but it's, you know, I wanted to create that space for somebody where they could actually show up and do that. And now I've got used to that and that level. I'm not kind of going back. It's you have to show up. But if people want to come and find out more about your lovely designs and visit and I hate to say connect with you, but where should they go?
On Instagram, we are at Finch Interiors, and also on Twitter, but I must admit, I don't post anything on Twitter. I'm hopeless.
I don't think anybody does. Like, this pops up a lot. People are like, I have Twitter, but I don't really know what to do with it.
I haven't posted anything, I think, for 2 years, but I've still got more followers on Instagram. Go figure. And then our website is www.finchinteriors.co.uk.
Fantastic. And what can they expect? Kind of describe, I'm looking at your Instagram as I'm talking to you, but I'm going to say the wrong phrases. So how would you describe it?
Describe our Instagram?
Yeah, or your sort of like, your aesthetic. I mean, I'm look at the big chill bar is just one of my favourites. It just feels like I would wear an excellent hat if I was there.
Well, the next bar we're doing at the moment, we're opening in a couple of weeks, is in Shoreditch, and that, how would I describe it, is what we try and do is you open the door and go, oh my God, that's what I want. I want people to go, what is that? So we're doing something it's quite crazy there, and then we're doing a bar in the basement, which we're ramping up even more. So I suppose, what we start with is how can we really inspire and push people to go, oh, I've never seen that before, that's crazy. But now it feels normal. So
yes, and now I never want to leave. Like, I don't want to go back to just, you know, a plain seat and, unless there's something dangling from the ceiling, I'm not interested. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I can't wait to see like what you grow and where you go in the next 10 years. You've done so much already, and I've just loved chatting, and I feel really inspired. And I'm now looking at this big pile of papers next to my desk going, that's not inspiring. I need a disco ball or something. But thank you so much, Sophie. You've been such a wonderful guest. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Nicky, for everything. It's been great.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.